Hi, I'm Marques Johansson, and I worked with Jason DeTebris and Dan Mangum to present this demo where we'll be taking your cloud recipe to the edge, or at least demonstrating how to tie Equinix Metal's Crossplane provider to the cluster API provider to Crossplane's composition support and put it all together and make something fun happen. First, a few words about Equinix Metal and Platform Equinix. Equinix Metal allows you to provision bare metal at software speeds with hourly pricing and reserved instances, a spot market for bid-based purchases. Platform Equinix has over 210 IBX data centers in over 55 metros. These data centers have interconnection capabilities through Equinix Fiber to connect you to your users, your partners, your clouds, and along with co-location and services that go along with that, like private cages, secure cabinets, you have data center services like smart hands and smart monitoring. The Crossplane provider for Equinix Metal today comes with some limitations. You can only deploy devices and the virtual networks to attach those devices to. The devices themselves have the features built in to run whatever user data you want them to run at provision time and to configure their network ports and their bonding to be either some combination of layer 2, individual layer 2 bonded, layer 3, or hybrid. And with this, you can connect multiple devices to the same layer 2 virtual network and do fun things like run DHCP, things that you can't do in other clouds. The future of the Crossplane provider will be introducing support for connections, spot market requests, IP reservation management, and SSH provisioning. The Crossplane Cluster API and Equinix Metal demo is going to feature bringing up a bare metal device using user data and a special custom data field to configure the user data. Cluster API provider for Packet, which will provision bare metal cluster using Cluster API's kubeadm provisioner. Crossplane's Helm provider to deploy a workload into that Cluster API cluster, and Crossplane composition to bundle all this up together as a reusable component. You have to have Kubernetes installed, Crossplane installed, and Cluster API provider Packet installed to move forward with this. Any references to Packet that's what Equinix Metal was before. So we can call that Equinix Metal.
All right, so I'm going to show a little bit about how our demo works. So the basis of our demo is that we've set up a cluster API cluster. So if we go ahead and get all the cluster API components here, we should see in my local kind cluster things like the different packet machines that we have, the templates, as well as the kubeadmin control plane and the different machines. And you can see that these are all provisioned and running. So that means that we have a cluster API cluster up and running. And if we get secrets, we should be able to see that we have a CAPI quick start queue config, which we are going to use later on to access this cluster. We've also gone ahead and installed a configuration here, which is our cross CAPI metal configuration. It has dependencies on provider Helm and provider Equinix Metal. So if we actually look at the installed version of the configuration, you'll see that we have 2 dependencies found and 2 installed. And you can see those are healthy and ready above. And what that has done is added CRDs for each. So if we look at CRDs for Equinix, we should see things like a provider config, a virtual network, a device, etc. And if we look for Helm, we have them for releases and its provider configs. You'll also see that we have our XRDs present, which are our way of abstracting the underlying types into higher level composed resources. And so the one we're going to be talking about today is demos.metal.equinix.com. And you'll see we actually have a demo here that's present. It says it's false ready, but it actually is ready. And what that's doing behind the scenes is that we've actually created a Helm provider config. So we can look at provider config.helm and see it's the default. If we actually looked at that, we can see that it points to the CAPI quick start kube config, which is going to allow us to provision Helm charts into that cluster. We've also created a Helm release that's called cross CAPI metal. You can see it's true and been deployed into the cluster. And the last thing, which this is going to say that it's not ready, but we will show in just a moment that it is. We have a cross CAPI metal device here, which is running on Equinix. And if we actually looked at the device content, we could see that we are setting up a MySQL database inside of it, which is going to allow our application running in the CAPI cluster to be able to reach out to the device, which is also running on Equinix Metal, and be able to use that as its backing data store. All right, so what we want to be able to do is actually access this and show that it's working. So I'm going to go ahead and use that secret that I mentioned earlier when we looked at the secrets produced by CAPI, and I'm going to go ahead and port forward that service. And we can see that that is working successfully. If I actually go down here and we look into that cluster, we can see that the pod is running and it's up and ready and it's connected to the database as evidenced by it being in a healthy state. And if we go ahead and navigate to that port forwarded address, we'll see welcome to Crossplane Community Day. We'll also see that our application is able to talk to the database. We've already added Marques there with his location. And so we can also continue to post this database via the create endpoint, which I can show here. So once again, we're just curling this local host address, which is going to go to the application that's running in the CAPI cluster, and it's going to reach out to the other device we provisioned via Crossplane on Equinix Metal that it's using as a MySQL server. And we should see that replies correctly. We actually need to add the create endpoint there, and we should get that back. And if we go back to localhost, we now see that JSON has also been added to the list. So that's a short demo of Cluster API and Crossplane. One thing we hope to be able to do in the future is to be able to integrate Cluster API and Crossplane a little bit better so that Cluster API can use the Crossplane providers to provision infrastructure, and Crossplane can use Cluster API to spin up new Kubernetes clusters across any infrastructure.
On Dan Mangum's The Binding Status web show and David Mackay's Raw Code show, there have been a number of featured episodes about the integrations of Crossplane, Cluster API, and Equinix Metal. You can check them out on the links here. I hope you enjoyed our demo. Reach out to Jason, Dan, or myself on GitHub or Twitter, or find us in Slack.